Hey, you lukewarm egoists. Subscribe to Suki. Or don't. Be a joke of a striker all your life if you want. Or be a strong egoist by subscribing right now. Your choice.
What if the destructive monster who was once praised for his puppeteer excellence took his skill set to the rationally logical offensive powerhouse Bastard Munchen, in exchange for a player who had become BlueLock's ace with his use of luck and vision to get to unmarked territories to destroy the defense with his destructive direct shot, who would find himself in a place known for making upcomers into big money stars in PXG. That's right, thanks to the constant requests and reminders of a longtime follower of the channel, Ruben Figueredo 4229, this video has finally become a reality. To thank you for such patience, I reached out to a very special person I have been trying to get on the channel for a whole year. He is the one with the fire thumbnails in his videos and has the most researched BlueLock content, AKIRA.
Hey everyone, I'm AKIRA and I'm a small BlueLock YouTuber and I'm here to join this what if scenario. Coming to the NEL, we have Isagi and Rin competing for the #1 spot, with Isagi stealing the final goal by utilizing his iconic luck piece. By scoring the final goal and winning the match for Barca Munich, we had Isagi get a huge salary boost, with both players tying for first place. Now both players have different skill sets and mentalities, where Rin still is individually the most talented player on a technical and skillful level, while Isagi's mindset, understanding of concepts like talented learners and geniuses, football IQ, etc. is what made him stand out in the NEL. So now is the question, how much of Isagi and Rin's development was due to their environments, and what would happen if Rin and Isagi swapped clubs?
So this video will be broken down in various sections, being how Rin and Isagi end up choosing their new clubs, breaking down what they were before the NEL, and then seeing how they would develop in their new Stratums with new teammates. Seeing what abilities they would get and how they would impact the matches. I won't go in depth with the matches like how I'm doing for my episode Nagi, but I will instead just touch upon where they will actually make significant changes for better or for worse. And we will give score lines for the end of each game. Now with that set in stone, I'll send it over to AKIRA.
Before we really begin the video, I'd like to remind people about the manga spoilers, as this video covers up to the end of the NEL.
Alright, now in this situation, in order for Rin to end up choosing Bastard Munchen instead of PXG, we must initiate a trigger point in the story to make Rin change his mind. To even attempt that, we have to think of why he first of all joined PXG. The answer is pretty simple, as the way Ego brands it is two keywords, up-and-comer and big money. He states France is considered the new young upstart of European leagues, and in recent years has burgeoned into the largest market thanks to an influx of prominent investors. It's become a hot place that's running on its way to being the top league in Europe. Now with this information, it's the most vague among the NEL teams, however it still gives us room to work with, getting an understanding of why Rin chose PXG in the first place. Since we never get a direct reason stated for Rin, this is just a really good estimated guess. I believe that because his desire still to crush itoshi as reviewed in chapter 152, he wanted to do it on a team that relied on up-and-coming stars, and with the lights on the hottest and biggest marketplace in Europe, he would get the whole world's attention, including Sai and Isagi, especially if he was trying to get a bit from La Real. The second reason is because of how vague the team explanation was. Rin states in order to crush Sai, he needs to become something new, which was vague. The only place that didn't seem to rely on a certain system or tactic was PXG, giving Rin his freedom to mold the team in his own image. Now the trigger point in this decision would be that in this version, Rin would ponder on the fact that the people he hates the most are Isagi and Sai. In order to overcome them, the most devious thing would be to destroy them both at their best element, logic and goals. So he would choose the club that is based on logic and rationality, because as a wise man Sun Tzu once said, to beat your enemy, you must first understand your enemy. So with that, Rin would choose Germany, with the bonus of the chance to get to surpass the #1 world striker, Noel, and an unexpected new Gen 11 similar to that of his brother on the horizon.
Now, unlike Rin, we actually do know why Isagi chose to play for Bastard Munich, being that Ego directly states that in Germany that is where the world's best striker Noel plays, being Isagi's favourite player. There was no way that he was going to throw up the chance to play with Noah, and a bonus is that the playstyle was right up Isagi's alley with logical approaches to winning high scoring games. It's a place worthy of a logical striker like Isagi. Now this makes it slightly harder to set a trigger point for him. I believe the best trigger point would be when Barou talks about being the best striker, and it doesn't really matter where you go as it's about making your chosen path the right one. Isagi would then ponder in thought and think, would teaming up with Noah really make me stronger, or would being his opponent make me stronger? I guess if I really want to be the world's best striker, I would have to take down Noah at some point, and we're better than his birth roots. Isagi would then go to France to go to the home ground of his soccer hero in order to take down his greatest idol, Noah.
Character breakdown. To continue, I believe we should look at what Itoshi Rin can do before we can even say how he would progress at Bastard Munchen. Itoshi Rin has two main styles of play that we've seen during his matches. The first is called the Puppet Master, a style that revolves around the manipulation of players on the field that led to his benefit. This manipulation of players does not simply extend to allies but also to the enemies as well, seen in the second selection match against Isagi's team. The other style is called Destructive, a style revolving around the extortion of the opponent's weapon and use of it against them to crush them entirely. We see him doing this against the U20 defenders in the U20 match, using Neo's speed, the rise off the ball movement, and Neo's core strength against each of the defenders respectively, completely defeating them with little difficulty. Rin's primary skill is his perfect kicking accuracy, which allows him to hit insane spin shots, trivela shots, line drive shots, and many more. He also possesses almost identical weapons to Isagi, such as spatial awareness and off-the-ball movements. In comparison to Isagi, his skills are far more superior at this point of the series.
To continue, I believe we should dive into what Isagi can already do before we can even say how he would progress in PXG. Isagi's playstyle before the NEL was perfectly described in chapter 157. Isagi states that he utilizes his spatial awareness to get a broad view of the state of the play, and the concentration and fortitude to spend 90 minutes searching for openings in the enemy line and repeatedly challenging them. He does this as his weapon is his direct shot, where he has to slip past the enemy to move freely, to give himself time and balance to receive a perfectly good pass for a direct shot that is in the form of the volley, hence why he needs to be in the perfect position to receive a ball in the air to shoot without interruption. And if he is slightly pushed at all, example being Sai, he can't complete the direct shot off balance.
Stratum development. Rin and Bastard Munchen would complete the initial training and place in the top 11, kicking out Backman in the process, which would lead to a tricky situation as he is the goalkeeper and Noah only said that he would use the top 11, which would be having to contradict himself. And he didn't see Gagamao as a better option yet, so I still believe Backman would still play as goalkeeper. But if Gagamao did play, it would be a very fun sight to see if he played against FC Barca. Rin would get more playing time as there would be no 15-minute interval system like in PXG. Rin wouldn't have the same type of rivalry with Kaiser as Isagi did with Kaiser. This is because Kaiser was solely interested in BlueLock's hero Yoichi Isagi. But I do believe in order to take full dominance on Bastard Munchen, Rin would have to make his own system to overthrow Kaiser's. The Bluelockers who fell under Isagi would do the same under Rin. However, the only three people I can see Rin taking interest in is Corona, Hiyori, and Kiora. For Corona, we have to remember that he assisted Rin in his final goal in the third selection. For Hiyori, he worked well with Rin in the third selection, and it was only their first time working together as well, easily replicating Isagi's role as he and Rin put in work against Team B. Among all the Bluelockers, Rin seems the most chill with is Hiyori, as when he got kicked in the face by Shido, he did not refuse Hiyori's help and wasn't rude to him, as he didn't call him tepid. For Kiora, we did not get to see him in action in the third selection, but we know he played in Team A for the final match. He did get in the reserve squad, but we don't know how much of a feat that is considering Ikeguri made it. However, it shows he has worked with Rin, and thanks to the second selection, he is actually a pretty good dribbler and uses his small body to break down defenders. This skill set can be useful to win, however he does not know the true terror of AKIRA, which may bring him down eventually. He wouldn't work well with Yukimiya because he is not like Nagi, which the reason that's the best Yukimiya duo is because of the theme of coexistence. An active Emperor dribbler with a player that relies on the passes to give him creativity he needs for the plays to work well. They don't interrupt each other's playstyles but instead complement it. Rin would have to basically use his puppeteer style to manipulate Yukimiya's plays to work in his favor. Rin has never played with Raichi and I doubt he even knows who he is, so he wouldn't give a damn about him. He doesn't really need to work with Gagamawa since he's the goalkeeper, so they are also neutral. He would see no worth in Ikaguri and NEL wouldn't contribute on offense, so they really wouldn't need to interact with Rin. Lucky Nero, I know he'd still be having PTSD from that exhibition game. Rin and Kunigami have never met before the NEL, so them being the emo guys there would lead to them not having any healthy interactions, especially since they're both competing for goals. The rest of the players are on Kaiser's side, so they wouldn't have any positive interactions with him as well. However, I believe if there is anyone who is going to ask for BlueLock #1's help in Bastard Munchen and would give his soul to Rin if it meant it, would be Ikaguri. Although I doubt it would be enough to get Ikaguri into starting lineup, I do believe Ikaguri's progression would excel much faster than compared to the main timeline. This isn't because I hate Ikaguri or anything, this is only because Bastard Munchen wants 2 systems in one lineup, unlike PXG who wants 2 lineups and 2 systems, which means even if Rin trains Ikaguri, he has to get into the main starting lineup, whereas Nanase had a whole starting lineup divided to Rin that he could work with, instead of having to get himself in a few starting lineup, which he might have not even played against Munchen City if that was the case. Also, PXG has just more fodder players than Bastard Munchen, so tough luck Ikaguri. Last thing I want to point out is that due to him choosing Bastard Munchen bringing out the most logical sides of players, I do believe Rin would put heavy restrictions on his destroyer mode, as I made his reason for coming to Bastard Munchen and destroying Sai in his own field of logic. However, if someone strong shows up to stop him, I believe those urges would come out when needed. I know he kind of already tried being a better version of Sai with the puppeteer style and it failed, but due to the video suggestion, this is the only excuse I could come up with. So I know this isn't a good reason or a team for Rin to join, but this is a swap video, so I gotta do what I gotta do.
Now for Isagi, we don't know if every team ran the same method Bastard Munich did for their starting 11, which I don't believe to be the case, as FC Barca was having a creative style and following Butcher's flow, and for Snuffy it was if you fit into his design. For Loki, I think it may have been just similar to Noah, considering this is the first time coaching and as a 17-year-old. Isagi was always going to play due to chapter 163, as it was in the contract for him to play since he is BlueLock's hero, and in Noel's words, fan service as the world wants him. So I believe Isagi could be on the bench and then get onto the pitch sometime in the game. We would see him get along with Karasu and Shido, as they had no problem passing to Isagi when this situation is called for. However, I don't know if Isagi would be able to tame Shido yet, especially without Metavision. He wouldn't have the same conversation with Loki that he did with Noah, since Noah is more wise and rational than him. This helped Isagi a lot towards his thought process progression in the NEL. This means Isagi would still have flaws in his own logic and would have an irrational mental block. Digging in deep into that mental block, we could see an inverse situation of what Irene went through, of trying to succeed as a talented learner and borrowing his genius traits, being the destroyer mode. Here, this is a team that thrives off irrational leaders and a contrarian midfielder to tame them, hence why PXG started working at its best when Irene went destroyer mode, as Charles finally had 2 irrational crackheads to work with. And so this was the best PXG looked until Irene started crashing into people as if this was the Fast and Furious series. So we could see Isagi try and force himself into an irrational player due to the environment of PXG. We could see him getting advice from Karasu about how to tackle finding enemy weak points, as that was Karasu's whole thing in the 3rd selection. I believe this will help Isagi more than anything Loki can tell him. This is because Karasu spends his time with analytics inside and outside of football, understanding players' ideologies, strengths, weak points, and constantly understanding enemy formations and how to break them down. This would be the ideal replacement. To Noel's conversation with Isagi, it might not be as strong, but it's better than nothing. Now the most important person that will determine Isagi's success is actually Charles, as he did show some interest in Isagi for who can read the field better. And so Charles could be the person who would awaken Isagi to a new level of metavision like he learned from Kaiser. Charles must have had some interest in Rin before the PXG vs Barcelona match, as he assisted Rin twice in a match where we saw Rin and Shido on the pitch at the same time, so Isagi would still have a strong chance of making Charles pass to him, especially if he gets good advice from a player who likes reading the pitch and updating his knowledge on it, being Karasu.
What abilities/wisdom can Rin gain? I could see Rin gaining all the abilities that he had in PXG, as Loki had no influence on Rin's development at all. So I could see Rin just being the same as his PXG version. I still believe he would share his experience, but not for Nanase, but for Ikiguri, as I believe they both had similar roles in this arc, which is trying to get into games and seeking help from Rin and Isagi. Nanase just chose a team that would give him a good chance of getting minutes, unlike Ikiguri. I could see Rin getting close to Metavision, or at least enhancing his puppeteer style, as he will be trying to beat the king of Bastard Munchen. With Ness on Kaiser's glazing duty, he would need to have a way better assessment of the field to try and dethrone Kaiser.
Isagi loses out on a lot of knowledge that he gained from Bastard Munich, like making sure he has no flaws in his playstyle. On the other hand, one thing he does gain faster is his ambidextrity, as I believe Nanase would ask Isagi for help faster than he would ask Rin for help. However, Nanase wouldn't get better because I believe Rin would be a better teacher than Isagi for Nanase's development and growth. Isagi would recognize that Nanase is ambidextrous faster than Rin, as Rin points out in chapter 251 he didn't notice it sooner because of Nanase being trash. But Isagi is not Rin, so he would notice it within 3 days max. So I believe Isagi would run to Kunigami to ask him to help him gain an ambidextrous body, and it would be a rougher time due to Kunigami not receiving an assist from Isagi against FC Barca in this timeline. But I still think due to their past friendship, Kunigami would still give him advice. And so I think Isagi would get his left shot sooner. I believe instead of Kaiser being the reason Isagi gets Metavision, it would be because of Charles, and I still believe Isagi would unlock it sometime during the Munchen game, as it took 2 games in the canon for Isagi to get it. Due to having a 20-day break after the first week, Isagi would have more time to train his lefty shot and gain Metavision in time for Munchen City. He would have also gone to Kunigami for training earlier thanks to Nanase, meaning he would have a better body to handle Metavision compared to the canon.
Now, how would Rin affect the Bastard Munchen matchups? Against FC Barca, Rin would score the first goal for Bastard Munchen in the NEL, as when the ball would be passed to him, he would waste no time backing a goal. Manchester United, take notes. They would beat FC Barca 3-2 with Rin, Kaiser, and Noah being the goal scorers. Also, Kunigami would get subbed off and lose his place in the starting 11, and honestly, whether he plays in the Munchen game wouldn't really affect the course of the story. And this is because Kunigami didn't really make any good chances before he got subbed off for Noah, and without Isagi, Kunigami can't get that shot to score. So yeah, it'll be GG like that, so I'm gonna have him benched. Against Munchen City, we would see the Kaiser vs Rin war start, as they would both duke it out for who can control the field more and who could get more goals. I could see Rin barely managing to get 1 goal in the beginning of that game, but Kaiser gets 2 goals, including a game winner where he crushes Rin's logic and shows that he still owns Bastard Munchen. So Bastard Munchen would win here 3-2 with Chigri and Rail scoring Munchen's goals. Bastard Munchen versus Ubers. Against Ubers, I think Rin here would get 2 goals, as Lorenzo would be man-marking Kaiser the whole game and he wouldn't struggle against IQ the way Isagi did, since Rin could just blast a long-range shot like he did against Ubers in the original canon. One problem in this match is Hiyori never steps on the pitch here, and Rin wouldn't reject Noah's substitution, so that means Kiora actually would step on the pitch, for real this time. I would also have Kunigami come on at the same time as Kiora. Noah would have Kunigami man-marking barou. Ubers would have scored their second goal faster, as Rin wouldn't instruct Raichi on how to stall Snuffy's tactics, meaning there's a chance barou scores a second goal before even terminating his contract. I believe Kiora would assist Kunigami, who would score the game winner against Ubers to win the match 3-2. I'll save his performance against PXG for AKIRA's part.
Now in the first game with PXG vs Ubers, I believe Isagi would have a difficult time breaking through the defensive schemes of Ubers without Metavision, and IQ being wary of Isagi would make him struggle even more. I also believe that Charles was man-marked by Lorenzo, so Ayu would have been trying to stop any aerial passes and trying to match Shido in the air. This would give IQ the room to fully crush Isagi. I don't think he would have the luck on his side to score a goal, as the circumstances wouldn't be aligned, and so I see Ubers winning the game with a comfortable 3-2 victory, with Shido scoring with an assist from Charles and Isagi. Up next we'll have the PXG vs Munchen game, where this game would be where Isagi would explode. We would also see Isagi and Shido be given their own system in this game, and Nanase, Togemitsu and Zentetsu would finally get minutes on the pitch. It's very likely Chigiri would score the opening goal for Munchen, giving them an early lead before Isagi goes mental, linking up with Nanase similar to how he did with Corona to get his first goal in the NEL. Rayo would then unlock Metavision, and Isagi doesn't have a Kagamaru, so Rayo would go mental to get Munchen City the lead again, 1-2. I believe the reason Shido was ineffective against Munchen City in the original story was because of Chigiri being a pest to him. It would be the same story here. I believe Isagi later on in the game would use Togemitsu's bulky prowess to his advantage by making a man mark Chigiri or Rayo this game, and this game would take a turn in who could control the field better between Isagi and Rayo. However, with Togemitsu there, he could be Isagi's shield, as he and Nanase would charge through the defense and send the ball back to Charles, who would send a deadly assist to Isagi, making the score 2-2. Nagi, feeling that Isagi is evolving at an insanely rapid pace compared to himself, would then call upon Rayo for help. The 5 fake out volley goal would happen, and so would be the beginning of Nagi's unmotivation. PXG would be given their second loss of the tournament, and Munchen get their first win. As for the PXG vs FC Barca game, it would likely go in the same way it did in canon, but with Isagi scoring in Rin's place, so Isagi would get 1 goal and Shido getting 2, saving them from pulling a Munchen City, giving their team their first win in the NEL.
Now we need to establish the pivotal segments heading into this final match. Firstly, there wouldn't be the championship match, as PXG lost some games in this version. The way the champion would be decided is if Basel Munchen can win, they are the NEL champions, but if they fail, Ubers are the NEL champions. We would see Karasu go to confront Hiyori, as he would be a little worried that his junior had not played a single match in this timeline as of yet. He would give him advice and remind him it's his choice if he wants to take Karasu's advice or not about following your own path, and he is good enough to win with his own design. Don't let the strikers control you, but you control them. And most importantly, if you are going to continue playing soccer, have fun. This would fire up Hiyori to try and take down Karasu and get a bid in order to survive. We would also see Kaiser and Isagi finally meet. Kaiser would stumble upon Kunigami and Isagi working out together and issue war against PXG, since they both have 3 goals each, to see who would be the ultimate striker, the best of the new Gen 11 or BlueLock's hero. Before Isagi would leave Basel Munchen's Stratum, Rin would see him and tell Isagi to bring him everything he's got, as he's gonna crush him. Now that I've hyped up some themes for that match, let's get into it.
As for PXG vs Barca Munich, this game would see Hiyori making his NEL debut. I believe the game would start off like in canon, with Shido opening up the scoring goal to give PXG the lead 0-1. Kunigami would then be put on horny duty, and then Rin would score an equalizer off of Hiyori's assist to bring the game level 1-1. Kaiser would then be crashing out, having not scored in his last game, being behind in goals against Rin and only being tied with Isagi. He would then fail his Kaiser Impact Magnus shot and go make sloppy plays before returning to 0, and thanks to an assist from Kiora, Kaiser would complete the Kaiser Impact Magnus, and he would go on to tell Ness to lock off and stop glazing him. And so the score is 2-1, and here is the problem. After assisting Shido, PXG would be in a big mess, as Charles wouldn't be able to cooperate with Isagi anymore. And Charles isn't some Yukimiya or Raichi who you can just manipulate into doing what you want. And Isagi would have a hell of a hard time breaking through Barca Munich's defense compared to PXG's, as Yukimiya, Hiyori and Corona could all be a pain for Isagi to get through. Isagi, unlike Rin, doesn't have a destroyer mode or any physical feats that could pull PXG out of this brink without a midfielder's pass to get him a direct shot. This would be very bad for PXG until Karasu's plan would come into motion for Zentetsu to get Kunigami off Shido, which could lead to PXG getting the second goal of the game, bringing the score to 2-2. However, the game would end with Hiyori passing the ball to Rin to finish off the game, but it does go wider to the Emperor as Hiyori would embody Karasu's trickery to assist Kaiser, who would land at Kaiser Impact to seal the win for Barca Munich, the NEL champions. With that being said, the introspective of all the characters' developments within the NEL is interesting because you realize how important both the teams and environments are towards the characters' development and how a slight twist of fate could have led to a whole new different dynamic. Stuff like Isagi likely not getting first place, Nagi's downfall being delayed, and how it's likely he could have made the top 23. Isagi could have found a way to awaken Tokomitsu, similar to how he helped both Yukami and Hiyori, and how other characters like Corona and Hiyori would interact with Rin, and if he could bring out the best of them like Isagi did. A small change like this could have a catastrophic difference to the plot, but at the end of the day, it's like Batra said, it doesn't matter the specific environment or team you picked, it's how you approach and adapt to them. And with that being said, thanks for having me.
Okay, here are my final thoughts. Isagi and Rin swapping NEL teams ends up badly for both of them, as even though they both thrive as well as they do in their first 3 games, replicating similar feats as they did in the canon, with Isagi getting his left shot way earlier. It ends up bad as Rin is in an irrational environment and restricts his destroyer state, which means he wouldn't be able to test the best version of himself, and would face a weaker Isagi who wouldn't be able to push him into that state in the first place. So in a sense, Rin would mentally regress himself again and wouldn't get Predator Eyes or wouldn't merge his 2 playstyles together. Well, I could still see him getting Predator Eyes in the U20 World Cup arc, I just don't see it happening here. For Isagi, he basically would not acquire some pieces to make him as strong as his canon self, like learning the difference between talented learners and geniuses, as Loki and Noah wouldn't get on the pitch in this timeline, as Charles wouldn't evolve here like in canon, and their influence on the pitch made Kaiser call them out, and then Isagi figured it out. He also wouldn't figure out the fastest to adapt puzzle pieces. So we already have the fact that Isagi wouldn't understand talented learners or geniuses and the fastest to adapt pieces. He also wouldn't have a talented learner striker to steal passes from, like how he did with Kaiser and Ness in chapter 293. Since Shido is a genius, Isagi wouldn't be able to pull that feat off. Lastly is Charles. After Charles and Shido become too codependent, Isagi would be useless as he isn't a genius himself. It's kind of the opposite of Munchen, where the genius midfielder Ness assisted Isagi because both him and Kaiser are talented learner strikers and move similarly. It's the opposite in PXG, where the contrarian midfielder assisted Rin in a territory where the 2 genius strikers would go. So Charles was already attracted to geniuses, meanwhile Ness is attracted to talented learners in a sense. So Isagi wouldn't gel well with Charles unless Charles gives into the whole metavision sense of things, like how they had a confrontation in chapter 250, but when they're on the same team, I doubt it would work, as I think it was more of an opponent's type of thing. Overall, for Isagi, he only succeeds until Charles gets bored of him. AKIRA, thank you so much for helping me out with this video. It was such a pleasure having you on the channel. I would love to collaborate with you again in the future, whenever that be. But until the next video, stay blessed. Suki out.